live stream's on. Okay, thank you.
Okay, good to go.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the July 29th, 2025 meeting of the Preston County Board of Education. This meeting is now called to order. We will start with a moment of silence, and then Mr. Kisner will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
So please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'll remind everyone that this is a public meeting and it is being live streamed and recorded. Okay, we have no recognition scheduled for tonight. We have no delegations that signed up beforehand or on the sign-up sheet tonight. So our first action is to approve the agenda. It is recommended that the board approve the meeting agenda. Can I get that motion?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mr. Kisner.
Second.
Second by Mr. Hovatter. Is there any discussion regarding the agenda or request for changes? Not hearing any. It's been moved and seconded, so I call the vote for approving the agenda.
Voting is open. Ms. Noss, do you want to do a voice vote on that?
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. There are no scheduled presentations. Our next item of business is approving the minutes from the July 14th, 2025 meeting. It is recommended that the board approve the minutes from the July 14th board meeting. Can I get that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, moved by Mr. Zigray,
Second.
second by Mrs. Noss. Is there any discussion or corrections to the minutes? Okay, not hearing any. The motion has been made and seconded. I call the vote for approving the minutes.
Voting is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Next, we have the service personnel. This is an action item. Okay, it's recommended that the board approve the service personnel agenda. May I get that motion?
So moved.
Mr. Hovatter made the motion.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kisner. Okay, Mrs. Varner or Mr. Martin, is there anything that you want to inform us about?
No, I mean, as we approach school, I think Mrs. Varner may be at the conclusion of, or if you want to report out briefly on where we stand with some positions.
If so, Mrs. Varner, use this mic. Mrs. Noss said that one wasn't. She couldn't hear that one last week.
Well, if she turned it on, I don't know if it was
Is
turned
it-
on. You just have to turn the button on there, Mrs. Varner.
Is this better?
Yeah, just speak real close to it.
Okay, so as you can see on the agenda, we have two current positions that are open, well, actually 3 with the new request for the one at West Preston. Our service, we are filling pretty quickly, and we have aides and cooks that are waiting for positions. Our general maintenance plumber is our probably one position that we're having the most trouble filling because you must hold a plumber's license in order to fill the position. So at this point, we are working with Mr. Murray to determine what our next steps are, because we have posted this for 4 terms, put it out on our Facebook page, multiple social media sites and everywhere to try to find someone certified, and we're just not having any luck finding someone to accept that position who holds the right certification. So we are going to look at what our options are with that position at this time.
And Ms. Varner, with that, for the board's benefit, a lot of the service categories have proficiency testing that, like through NOCTI, that they're able to test into, but in the plumber, that is not one
not an
category
option.
where that is permissible. Is that correct?
That is correct. You must hold a state-issued plumber's license for that position.
Okay.
So on the services side, we are doing well getting all the positions filled, and I believe we'll be in good shape for the beginning of school year.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Varner. Okay. Is there any questions from board members? Not hearing any other discussion, the motion has been made and seconded. I call the vote for the service personnel agenda.
Voting is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. We are now at the professional personnel.
Mr. Tatham, I'll need to recuse myself. My daughter's on that agenda.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Noss. Okay, it's recommended that the board approve the professional personnel agenda. May I get that motion?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mr. Kisner,
Second.
second by Mr. Hovatter. Mrs. Varner, Mr. Martin?
Ms. Varner, if you just want to quickly relay where we stand with professional positions.
So the positions, many of the ones that are under county, such as the interpreter of speech language, the deaf of hard of hearing teacher, you guys have passed many of our MOUs to work with Best Life Therapy in those. So we are able to contract with those companies, and we do have people to fill those positions because we have had them posted since March, and we're not able to find anyone willing to do those or certified to do those. So we do have people through Best Life Therapy and other MOUs that you guys have already approved to fill those positions. So we are okay on all of those, even though they won't be our hired employees, but through the MOUs, we are covered. Many of the other positions, we are still taking applicants, and we're going to continue doing interviews and things. Many of those close on Wednesday and Thursday of this week, so principals will be setting up interviews for early next week and trying to get everything accomplished early on. Our biggest area right now are some of our special ed positions that we're going to have some issues trying to fill those. Otherwise, our special ed and our music. So we're looking for those.
Two music.
I have reached out to both WVU and Fairmont State at this time, looking for possibilities for CTRs in those positions. Special ed, I was told no. I may have a possible CTR for one of our music positions. So I'm just waiting to hear back on that possibility.
And Mrs. Varner, with some of those special ed positions, we are pursuing potential for alternate certification with a
certs.
few of pre-existing substitutes to try to, which those would allow those positions to be filled in a full-time
Full-time
capacity
capacity.
while that individual is working towards certification.
I currently have 3
Great.
special ed alt certs currently, and I'm looking at possibly 2 more.
And
So-
board members, that process is, Mrs. Varner, approximately year and a half
It
to 2
usually
years.
takes about 2 years to get through the first set of coursework, and then they'll become a provisional license in which they will work on their autistic coursework at that time, and then they'll switch over to a professional license.
And we've had great success in filling jobs that way. And Mrs. Varner has done a great job in identifying, you know, what she feels to be good candidates for that program. And it's helped us fill a number of jobs.
And then our coaches, we have quite a few things on here for our coaches. I'm just trying to get all of that set aside and ready to go because August 4th is day one of a lot of our practices for all of our fall sports. So we wanted to make sure we had everything on there and ready to go before first day of practice. So a lot of stuff on there for coaches. And I think that's everything for professional.
Thank you. Okay, questions from board members or discussion?
Just making sure, I assume it was just a typo, but on page 2, the English teacher for PHS says the status is TND. I assume it's just TBD, I'm just
TBD.
making sure there's not an
Yep.
acronym that I don't, that I approved something I didn't realize it was
Yeah,
a different type.
It should be TBD.
Okay. And then the tear out of social studies science position has been being posted, correct?
Yes. We have it up one more time. We do have a couple people who now either hold science and/or social studies. So Terrell is going to be reaching out to those people and getting some interviews set up.
And Ms. Varner, one other thing for the board's benefit, our last board meeting before the start of school will be on the 11th. And at that juncture, we could fill jobs up until the 11th. Anything beyond that, the typical process would be if an in-county applicant were to apply on a position, generally that would be filled the next academic year unless it would be deemed to be in the students' and schools' best interest to allow the move, which we would certainly communicate that to the board if we were taking such action.
The only positions that we cannot do that on is if they're like an autistic mentor
Right.
or a certain special ed positions, aid positions, teacher positions, that there are certain rules within code that we're not able to make those moves on.
And then under athletic event support staff,
Yes.
I believe one of the members there we've had in the past to have special exclusions as to being able to handle money, is that correct?
Yes.
That will
Those
continue.
stipulations are all still in play?
Still in Yes. place.
It's the same situation as we've had in the past?
They'll be
Yes.
just controlling a parking area
Yeah,
for deemed events at PHS.
Okay, thank you.
And the only ones that are on here are just PHS at the current time because they will start their sports season a little earlier than all of our other schools. So on August 11th, you will have all the other middle schools' event staff listed. And then if we still need additional after that point, we will post to add others. So these were just ones who have done it in the past that we were able to send out intents for, and they chose to come back.
And some of our schools will just choose not to employ, they handle it internally, building administrator. I mean, this is the school's discretion where they would choose to add this.
Thank you.
Anything else? Mr. Hovatter, Mr. Zigray?
No.
Okay. The motion has been made and seconded, so I call the vote for the professional personnel agenda.
Voting is open. Oh, shoot, I forgot about Mrs. Dawes. Motion passes 4-0 with one board member not present at the time of vote.
Thank you. Next, we have the superintendent's report.
Okay. Board members, you had a written copy of the report within the agenda. Just to quickly summarize, we had a meeting on July 23rd with representatives from Thrasher and Veritas to discuss the building of the project at Kingwood Elementary. Opening date, today was actually the first official opening of the project work. However, I know that Veritas will be on site tomorrow with door and hardware representative George L. Wilson in conjunction with Thrasher, and I'm sure we'll make sure that Mr. Murray is on site as well, taking final measurements on the door openings. for the project, which doesn't involve the replacement of all exterior doors in addition to a installation of a secure entryway at the front entry point. In the initial meeting, there was discussion, there will be certain lead times in terms of getting flooring and getting the, I can't even think, but some of the glass work and metal work up front. There was a question from Veritas, did we want to delay demolition in the office area? And I told them no. I wanted them to proceed with work as soon as possible. We have already had the office area vacated. We're making contingencies for an alternative entry point. I preferred, if they can get in there next week and do demolition work and really get a lot of that done before students and staff get on site. It's a relatively small, the office is relatively small. They do envision they would be able to do that demolition work relatively quickly. So my recommendation was to proceed with work as soon as possible. The temporary entry point for visitors will be at the exterior door leading from the top of the ramp between the Price Street and gym buildings. Mr. Murray is making arrangements to pull the dumpster. We're going to relocate the dumpster over towards the side parking lot near the pre-K K building. And there's some aluminum bleachers and so forth. And we're going to remove all of that because if that's going to be our primary entry point, we just didn't want all that stuff sitting around where there was the potential entry point for the school. In speaking with Mrs. Lansbury, who's the school secretary today, one thing she asked for was, at a minimum, a doorbell, which will give her some visual contact and confirmation that there's someone at the door. We'll work to that end. If we can't get that product in hand and installed beforehand, at the very least, initially, we would get like a remote doorbell, but to make sure that we notify people who are there. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to control the door in the short term, but we're hopeful that we will be able to get Kim relocated back to the main office relatively quickly. The meeting will also discuss logistics such as parking for construction workers, requirements for workers on site placement, placement of the SBA sign. I anticipate the SBA sign, that grassy area at the front of the parking lot that separates Price Street from the parking lot, it'll likely be mounted somewhere in there. That's just required for any SBA project. Placement of the construction storage unit in the construction dumpster will be over towards the football field. Choice on floor tiles for the front entry. I sent that information to Mrs. Peasley and members of her staff for review. They went, initially, Thrasher had looked at if you look at the color schematics at Kingwood Elementary, they use a lot of orange and blue in the hallway, even though their school colors are orange and black. The initial tile work that was displayed by Thrasher, I think was incorporating that blue because it's really what the current walls were. It was like almost a blue, yellow, and white. I was not in favor of that. I had the school review that. The school decided to go with, I had sent them something that had a light gray, orange, and white. School liked the light gray, they liked the white, they were not crazy about the orange. The color was pumpkin. I mean, they had some different shades of orange, but they just weren't necessarily in favor of any of those shades of orange. So they actually went with a gray, black, and white, very neutral. Preston High colors. Certainly, I think they can make that work, and I think they could probably do like an orange, like they want to ultimately repaint some of the hallways. I think they could do a splash of orange somewhere in the hallways to kind of integrate that colors, but they went with some pretty neutral colors. It looks nice. It's not their school colors, but I think it looks nice. We'll also match that up with paint samples for that immediate. That would be the office area and the controlled vestibule area is what we're talking about. And that tile work will be encompassed through there and extend outwards up towards where the two hallways break up until where the main hallway starts. And they'll work to try to integrate that tile as much as possible so it looks good in terms of they're not going to be replacing the tile throughout the hallway, but to try to blend that as much as possible. Summer custodial crews, I just want to give kudos to our summer custodians. We did not have a large crew this year. The guys and ladies are really working hard. I think we're in good shape in most sites. We had to send maintenance staff to Aurora because we just did not have staff to get up there to work on that building. So I know that I think Art and Bill and Donnie are working up there. But the crews, we have very small crews in some instances, 2 and 3 guys and ladies are working to get these buildings completed. Very pleased with their work. We feel like Most of them are going to be finishing up in the next 6 to 8 days, which will get us done in advance of school. We also have the 210 custodians will be coming back in as well. So we're confident we'll have everything ready to go by the time that staff and students arrive. But certainly want to give those guys and ladies applause for their hard work this summer. Mr. Murray has established some priority projects. He and I just sat down, we were looking at specific projects at each location that we'd like to see accomplished either before school or in the very early portions of this academic year. At Aurora, obviously, to get a firm determined for the retaining wall construction and potential demolition of the facility building. What he's finding is most of the companies that would have any potential interest in doing the retaining wall feel that exterior building may need to come down. So, we're trying to get multiple vendors to see if that seems to be the consensus there. But that's a project that's been pending for quite a while and needs to be addressed. At Brewston, some exterior work in relation to building up the berm in and around the loop road that encircles the facility to prevent, like when cars park on it, so we don't break down the curb. Also, there was some parking lot erosion at Brewston that has been dealt with. Central Preston has dealt with a chiller unit that is repeatedly kicks off and is having to be turned on, trying to get final resolution. In terms of Mr. LaRue, we do feel like that we have a possible solution on that. That's something we're trying to get resolved prior to the start of the year. Repair at Terre East Preston, there's needed repair of the parking lot and sidewalk due to that water line break. We had a major power outage there that had an impact on AC units in the cafeteria and middle school basements, so getting that and making sure we're good there. And something that's been approved, the boiler replacement and any associated asbestos abatement at the school, and that was something that was previously approved. Vendor MCOR will be doing that work. At South Preston, let's look at repair of 2 HVAC lines and a resealing of the gym floor. There was a consensus that the gym floor did need to be redone. Vendor final floor will be doing that work. Repair of the immediate playground at West Preston, repair of any immediate playground issues. The school has submitted a proposal for a piece of equipment. I provided that proposal to our Board of Risk representative, and they have determined that everything looked good, that the equipment would meet all of their standards. The only thing I was asked to convey to the group was to ensure that the ground surfacing surrounding the equipment, there was a 6-foot radius around the entirety of the new equipment. Mr. Murray and I met with Mrs. Herco and representatives from Friends of Valley looking at some of the drainage issues. Really, this equipment, I think, is earmarked to be installed higher up on the playground in the grassy area, where over time, some of the larger pieces of the pre-existing will likely be removed or repaired depending upon the extent of some of the damage. Additional work at West Preston, let me look here, I just lost my place. Gravel on the Parent Loop Road down at the bottom needs to be refreshed. In addition, completion of HVAC work and valve work with MCOR prior to the start of school. At Kingwood Elementary, repair of the exterior block on the gym wing. It's also running down towards the second grade classrooms on the Spar Street side of the building. Movement of items from Price Street and the gym wing, between Price Street and the gym wing. Installation of a parking lot grate in the staff parking lot that borders between Spar Street and Price Street. And repair of moving to Preston High School, repair of the front parking lot lights. Mr. Murray indicated they have found where the line's running underneath. They don't need to create a new electrical service, hoping to get that resolved. Something about that. An alarm go off. Let's look at restroom. Shoot. Sorry, guys. At Preston High School, in addition, installation of restroom dividers in the concourse, resolution of roof leaks in the vocational school, installation of AC lines in the Fine Arts Highway, and getting the turf field groomed in advance of the athletic seasons, stadium bulb replacement, and at Rollsburg Opportunity Center, Mrs. Kelly's requested power washing of the exterior and some dry lock paint for the reading pit, or just some of the immediate concerns that were needed at Rollsburg. Moving forward, work has continued to remove technology infrastructure at Fellows,ville. It's been carried out with the exception of the elevated closet, which I think is now down. Additional supplies do need to be moved to other schools. I actually took some supplies up from Fellows,ville to South Preston yesterday. Still definitely have some more work to do there, but the intent is going to still be to try to have the property prepared for a potential sale this fall. The annual Principals Academy is scheduled for Thursday and Friday this week. Sessions will focus on a variety of topics, including introduction to new staff, review of the district strategic plan and employee non-negotiables, establishment of roles between the county AD and principals, discipline reporting documentation requirements, cell phone policy and protocols, development of a behavioral task force, review of a referral process for the Roseburg Opportunity Center, review of county discipline matrix, facility and custodial planning, data talk for format changes, new principal meeting format, desktop audits, the chaperone volunteer protocol reviews, data team process, instructional support for our Tier 3 teachers, standards-based walkthroughs, and engagement collection of strategic plan for the beginning of year planning. So we have quite a bit planned for that session over 2 days. That is a lot to accomplish. I will be presenting primarily on day one with our curriculum directors, kind of leading things on day two. Student basic information form has been posted and communicated to parents. Mr. Sines told us today there was approximately 1,000 entries. We just released it, I believe, at the end of last week, and we have approximately 1,000 entries at this time. So usually when we get that up, it's pretty quick to get information in. Obviously, our secretarial staff, a lot of work in terms of updating the student information system following that entry. Employee training has been posted on Vector Solutions Safety. Mr. Ziegler, I know you had a question on this last time. We put messaging out today in regards to the availability of those. We will need to add a few additional modules based upon, for example, passage, or we have some policies on review tonight that pending board approval will need to get added into that system for potential review by our staff as well. But the vast majority of the training is available to them so that they can get that done potentially in advance of the school year if they choose to do so. Also, contracts have been mailed to employees with basic information on back-to-school activities. More information will be posted over the next 2 weeks. Summer school is wrapping up this week. In addition, athletic practices will be starting at Preston High School and some middle school sports next week. Bus schedules for summer practices have already been posted and communicated. In speaking with Mr. Plum today, he anticipated we'll have the actual bus schedules likely posted either the end of this week or early next week. So we'd like to give, roughly a week and a half to 2 weeks advance notice on that. That gives parents time if they have any concerns, they can get in contact with the bus garage. Those schedules, Mr. Plum actually met in conjunction with each of our driver teams from each community to discuss any potential concerns. If there's any substantial changes to bus routes, that is required that the parents are notified in writing and by telephone. We do have a limited scope of those changes, and I know Mr. Plum and I actually went out and assessed a potential issue that I think we've come to a decent resolution on that had been identified through that process. Our next regular scheduled meeting is Monday, August 11th at 6 p.m. We also, of course, have a work session for parents, teachers, and community members to discuss school needs and concerns, which will be scheduled on Monday, September 8th, in advance of that scheduled meeting. And Mrs. Varner, at this point, we do not anticipate requesting a special meeting for personnel matters. Some years we've had to do that. Just kind of the way things fell this year, it just didn't make sense to add it this year. Okay. Mr. Tatham, that's all I have at this time.
Okay.
Oh, one other thing, Mr. Tatham, I didn't have in this update. We have received notification, Superintendent Blatt has notified that our federal 21st century grants are going to be released. And Mrs. Layton received email from a representative within the federal programs that we anticipate release of our Title II, 3, 4, and we don't get 5. 2, 3, and 4 are forthcoming as well. So while they've been delayed, we are happy to know that those are soon to be received. So I know that was in question the last time we met.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Martin. Questions and comments from board members?
So you mentioned the parking lot and the sidewalk at Terre East Preston in the maintenance list. My understanding was that was a leak that had nothing to do with the school, that would be the town's job to restore.
We're trying to work. I know I don't know if we got into detail. We're trying to work with both the town and potentially state road. Really what we need is equipment to get it rolled and pressed. I mean, we can get a little blacktop in there, but my concern is just trying to get this done in a timely manner before the start of school. I feel like that we will be able to get this resolved with limited to no cost
Okay,
from the district standpoint.
okay. Thank you.
But that is correct. From what I understood the situation, the break on the line was on the town side of the meter. And I know that Mr. LaRue's been working in conjunction with town workers. And again, I think we're trying to get the potential state road to see if we could utilize their roller, which would certainly reduce some of the potential costs associated with it for the town.
Yeah, with the pavement side, but they did cut, I mean, when I looked at it, actually, I didn't put it together at first. I thought that we were just putting in a handicap ramp into the sidewalk the way that it was out, and then I
Well, maybe
realized what it
we could
was,
add that while
but-
we're at it, yes. Be the time to do it.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Other discussion? Mr. Hovatter? Okay, thank you, Mr. Martin. Okay, next on our agenda is an MOU between Preston County Schools and Fairmont State University for the Dual Credit Pathways Agreement. This is a discussion, information, and action item. It is recommended that the board approve the MOU between Preston County Schools and Fairmont State University for the Dual Credit Pathways Agreement for Education, Health and Human Performance, Business, Behavior Science, Architecture, Forensics, and Natural Science. May I get that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, moved by Mr. Zigray,
Second.
second by Mr. Kisner. Okay? Any discussion?
And the potential courses, board members, are listed on page 6. Repeat it there. But the courses are listed on those back pages in terms of potential course offerings.
Okay. Mrs. Noss, Mr. Zigray, any discussion?
Nope.
Okay. All right, not hearing any. It's been moved and seconded. I call the vote for the MOU with Fairmont State University.
Okay, voting is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Next, we have an MOU between Preston County Schools and Holly Blatt, BCBA. This is a discussion, information, and action item. It's recommended that the board approve the MOU between Preston County Schools and Holly Blatt, BCBA, Board Certified Behavior Analyst, to provide behavior consultation and training services. May I get that motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kisner.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Noss. Okay, discussion?
Mr. Tatham, I would say that work on this front to obtain, potential practitioners that can assist the county is important with some of the new legislation with the, I can't think of the House bill associated, but with some of the policies, when we have elementary students who are removed, if there's a certain frequency, it requires behavior intervention services. So, we have one individual that can provide that, but if we have a greater need, it's good that we have relationships and agreements with practitioners to potentially offer services as needed so that we're compliant with some of the recent legislative acts.
So this we just pay for as we need it?
Yes.
Right, there's no retainer?
No.
Okay, other discussion? Okay, not hearing any. It's been moved and seconded. I now call the vote for the MOU with Holly Blatt.
Voting is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. We now have an MOU between Preston County Schools and Valley Healthcare System for behavioral health care services. This is a discussion, information, and action item. It's recommended that the board approve the attached MOU between Preston County Schools and Valley Healthcare System for behavioral health care services for the 2025-26 academic year. May I get that motion?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mr. Hovatter,
Second.
Second by Mr. Zigray. Mr. Martin?
Oh, I would almost reiterate what I said earlier, is again, these type of MOUs will give us some options if needed for certain services that may need to be provided as certain behavioral issues could potentially arise.
Okay. Any questions or discussion?
My only comment is again, I won't hold it up, but I do prefer that we don't have bullet points like number 10 where they get to decide what courts we're allowed to take legal action in if necessary. I just think it's always to their benefit to have home court advantage and not to ours.
I'll note that, Mr. Kisner, and like I said, for future agreements, that's something we can certainly discuss with them.
Thank you, Mr. Kisner. Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, not hearing any. The motion has been moved and seconded. I now call the vote with the for the MOU with Valley Healthcare Systems.
Voting is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Okay, now we are at the MOU between Preston County Schools and the Youth Health Behavioral Threat Assessment Team. This is a discussion, information, and action item. It's recommended that the board approve the MOU between Preston County Schools and Youth Health Behavioral Threat Assessment Team for the 2025-26 academic year. Can I get that motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hovatter,
Second.
second by Mrs. Noss. Okay, Mr. Martin?
Second, let me get that in. Again, a portion of the new legislation does require the district's ability to conduct threat assessments depending upon certain behavioral issues that could rise with students, either at the elementary or middle and high levels. Mrs. Varner, this is correct. You've worked in conjunction with this practitioner. This is a free service that's available to West Virginia schools. If you want to speak to it at all, I know you've been a little more involved in this.
So this is a service that our state has, our region. This is our, like we have Strive regions, and this person here is assigned to our area. She has met with our team. Our team here is consisting of Mrs. Sofcheck, Mr. Schmidl, Officer Lewis, and
Mr. Hogue, I think, sat
Mr.
in on it
Hogue
as
is
well.
also involved. That is, and then Mrs. Helmick and Mrs. Stanley, our two social workers, and myself. That is our county team right now. And then we will, they're going to speak about this at our Administrators Academy and then our first principals meeting. And then Crystal is going to come and train our principals in September and go over everything with them as how does this threat assessment work, how she will come in, she will work when she is needed, what are steps that each school needs to be put into place when a situation arises. So we're getting our county set up for when a situation like this, we know how to handle it.
And certainly appreciate your.
If a true threat assessment arises with the student, they actually come in and help provide the services and supports that we need.
Yeah, certainly appreciate Mrs. Varner's initiative in reaching out. I think this will be a beneficial service to us, and again, with free of charge, and it's kind of, again, a service that's offered to districts in and around North Central West Virginia.
Thank you. Okay, questions from board members or discussion? Not hearing any, it's been moved and seconded. I now call the vote for the MOU with the Youth Health Behavioral Threat Assessment Team.
Voting is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Okay, we have no field trips, no chaperones, no professional meetings, ongoing literacy discussion. There's no updates for that. So now we are to the policy part of our agenda. Now we are at the protocols for approved approval of chaperones and volunteers related to Preston County Schools Policy 10-13. This is an information and discussion item. Mr. Martin?
Sure, Mr. Tatham. So as per discussion recent board meeting, of course, the board really reviewed the chaperone volunteer policy 10-13. I mean, there was substantial time spent in the past year making updates to this policy. What we want to do with this protocol is just kind of lay out the process for an individual who would like to serve as a volunteer chaperone and kind of give a step-by-step process of how that would ultimately be achieved. This, obviously, following the board's review tonight, this is something we will also spend time on at our upcoming Administrators Academy to be sure that everyone's on the same page as kind of the procedural process that will be necessary to get approved as a volunteer chaperone for Preston County Schools. So with the protocol document, of course, we provided the formal definitions of what constitutes a volunteer and a chaperone, which was pulled directly from the existing policy. To kind of walk through the step-by-step, if you look through the document, I've done hyperlinks, so this is going to be shared on the board, on the board's, the school websites and the county website, really so that individuals can click and kind of go step-by-step through this process. We've obviously linked the Preston County Schools Policy 10-13, the policy in full for anyone who would like to review that. But then to actually, for individuals seeking approval, again, it's just kind of a three-step process, although there's several things involved in those 3 steps. Step 1 would be is the individual who is interested would need to complete either a volunteer application form or a chaperone application form, which again is derived directly from policy and is hyperlinked before you. They will submit said application to their building administrator. The building administrator's first responsibility is to take that application and the information provided and run that against the state sex offender registry. That has always been required in our policies. So the principal then deems, okay, the individual, for example, if the individual submits is on the sex offender registry, that's kind of where the process stops for that individual. They would not be, there would be no further movement on that. They could not be recommended. I'm required in writing to indicate that they would be denied approval process. They would not be approved as a volunteer, as a chaperone as a result. But let's say the individual is not on the sex offenders list, and the next step is the building principal, upon receipt of the submitted volunteer chaperone application, an eligible applicant, the school principal or designee will direct the prospective volunteer chaperone to take the Preston County Volunteer Program background check form, and they will be able to take this currently to the Preston County Sheriff's Department, and we provide the address and business hours. There is a associated fee of $5 for those submitting this for this request. At this time, we're trying to work in conjunction with the Sheriff's Department as to the extent of the background check and the information that can be elicited. But the form basically directs the Sheriff Department representatives to complete the check and then send the copy to the attention of either myself or Mrs. Varner. Typically, they'll have to do that via fax. I think with any potential confidential information, it has to be submitted by fax versus email. The check itself will indicate whether there is a identified issue from the individual so that it's known. But part of that volunteer application process is a self-disclosure. So we should, if there was an issue in the background, should have already known this because it should have been disclosed by the individual in the very first part of the process. Obviously, if an individual fails to disclose the potential issue in their background check, again, that would exclude them from consideration at this point. The next step would be the required training. There's two ways that the individual could obtain the training. They're going to go to the building principal. The building principal building principal designee can determine and announce, we're going to do a group training session on whatever date they designate and invite prospective volunteers and chaperones to participate. If they do that, they will use a designated account within the Vector Solutions platform to complete those training modules. And that's a combination of video tutorials with online questions. There are also just straight policy reviews in which the individual has to answer questions about the review of the policy. I believe all of the things included are as follows. The training completion modules is child abuse mandatory reporting. That takes approximately 30 minutes to complete. That would be required on an annual basis. FERPA, student confidentiality, takes 20 minutes. That would be required on an annual basis. Megan's Law, recognition of eating disorders and self-harm, that is a 25-minute, and that's a video that is actually pulled directly from the West Virginia Department of Education. It's approximately 25 minutes. It is required to be completed every 3 years. In addition, policy and document reviews related to, we'll have the acceptable use policy, because these parents or these chaperones or volunteers could be using school technology while in the building. They also will sign off their review of the volunteer chaperone policy, our social media policy, and our drug-free schools policy. Upon completion of all required trainings, if they did it in a group session, the principal or designee would be sure that they have a sign-in list of all participants. Once the trainings have been completed, they can print off the certificate and submit it for the board's potential review. But the question would be is, let's say we have an individual who can't come to a group training. The school would be able to assign an individual account to an individual, and once they complete it, again, we would be able to print off their certificates. They could complete these training processes. They don't have to necessarily do it in a group or at school. They could do it outside of the school. So we're trying to provide flexibility, and the creation of an account is a very quick process for our administrators. I mean, I can create an account, 2 minutes would probably take to create that. And we'll track those in a manner that each school will be set up by the first letter of the alphabet. So, for example, we'll use Aurora, for example. Aurora's group training account would be characterized as A1. Any future additional people they would add would just go A2, A3, A4, but we would be able to associate that with the individual and be able to track their completion of the training. Once their training is completed, we can turn off that account so that account is not going to count against us in terms of where we don't have a very large number of accounts that we would have to pay for at the end of the year, but we are able to use the platform in the short term in that manner. So basically, after everything's completed, the principal would be required to submit, as per the policy, Form R10-13-7 for recommended chaperones, or R10-13-9 for recommended volunteers. Basically, what that says is the principal is listing the names, that they are agreeing that they are not on the sex offender list and have completed all requirements associated with the policy. Again, my intent, board members, is we have these come in. I'm going to include that form in addition to, Mrs. Varner, that's getting ready to kick off up there. That form in addition to a copy of the training documents and the statement that have been sent to us by the Sheriff's Department. And again, we're trying to pin down exactly the extent of what that background check can be completed by the Sheriff's Department.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Martin. Okay, questions or comments?
My only question was, I don't know whether, when you were determining the trainings, the eating disorders just seems to me like.
It's required. It's required. It's legislatively required.
For volunteers. So it's something
Yes.
that we should have been doing before.
Staff they have to do it.
Yeah, like I knew our staff had to. I just didn't know how you decide. I mean, like I can just, if I was a volunteer being asked to sit through an eating disorder, I thought it was dumb legislation when our educators were required to do it. I can only imagine what a chaperone's going to think when they have to sit down and watch it.
It's a mixture. It's eating disorder and self-harm. So, I mean, some of it's awareness just where kids are showing signs of being in some type of distress. I went through it. It's not bad.
Yeah, it's 30 minutes. Somebody's like, but if your feeling was it was required, that's fine.
It is. It's
I just
definitely
was asking
required.
how we came to the determination. So,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Martin. As you guys roll this process out, since this is the first year, if you find that something needs to be changed or whatnot, please bring it to the board so that we can update or modify as we need to as things roll
I'll
out.
try to bring this topic again. We're still in discussion with the Sheriff's Department with the background check process, so I'll certainly try to update the board as we get additional information on that front.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if there's nothing else on that, we will move on to our next item, which is Preston County Schools Policy 8-42, Employee Cell Phone Use. This is a information, discussion, and action item. It is recommended that the board approve the updates to Preston County Schools Policy 8-42, employee cell phone use, on first read for potential final approval on second read on August 11th, 2025. Can I get that motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kisner.
Second.
Second by Mr. Hovatter. Mr. Martin, is there any information you'd like?
Sure. This policy is really being refined in conjunction with our student cell phone, but our student electronic personal device policy. Of course, this is being driven by recent legislative actions in addition to change in state board policy. But in conjunction, we wanted to make sure that we were also updating this policy to kind of correlate to any changes that were coming to the student policy. A few things that were suggested by the board last time was making sure that uniformly the use of cell phone would be replaced with the moniker personal electronic device. I know that Mr. Hovatter had brought that point up. In addition to, we had our legal counsel review, and she did also make some suggested updates in terms of reiterating the definition of personal electronic device within the policy. And she did add some limited verbiage that's been marked in green. But again, in her review of this, it was certainly, and she reviewed both policies. So in looking at both our student policy and our staff policy, she was comfortable with the verbiage as it stands that's being suggested to the board tonight. And Mr. Kisner, the other thing, those bulleted items, I tried to make some changes there that I felt like reads better or reads a little better than I think what we saw in the policy previously.
Yeah, I thought it was an improvement.
Okay. Comments or discussion amongst board members?
So I have a question.
Sure.
So they're not allowed to use their cell phones unless it's an emergency. The phone lines go down at the school. Is that considered an emergency that they're going to be able to use their cell phones?
Mrs. Knox, if it was an emergency situation, sure. And we do have instances, and our cell lines are contingent upon our internet data. So, I mean, that is a possibility. I mean, that would be considered, obviously, if there was use during that time in an emergency situation, that would be taken into consideration.
Okay.
But I think that the point of this is if we're asking our students to stay off their cell phones, we feel it's very appropriate that we need to have obviously a similar.
I agree. I just know that several times in the past year, I got phone calls that phone lines were down at schools.
Sure.
So then there's got to be a way to communicate between the principal and the teachers and other things. So obviously, personal cell phones would be the only way they would probably be able to do that. The phone lines
Yeah,
are down,
depending upon some of the
actually leaving a classroom and going.
Yeah, internally, they would be able to still communicate using, a lot of schools have radios, a lot of them have intercom systems and things of that nature. But certainly, that would be kind of an exception situation when we had phone lines down for any period of time.
Okay.
It does create an interesting scenario because part of this new phone system was the ability for them to port it to their cell phone as needed, right?
We can,
Like,
yes.
So they have.
Well, that's a good point, Mr. Kisner. I mean, yes, there is users can incorporate an app that could push their calls to the classroom phone to a cellular phone in an instance like that. So, I mean, that would be, one practical use where you would say, based on the circumstances, we could.
Okay.
Well, I think the policy too is clear in this. It says employees may not use personal electronic devices for personal use.
Right.
If it's being ported from a school phone, that's not
For
a
business
personal
purposes.
use anymore. That's a
Good point.
business, that's a
Right.
school system. So I think too, we need to communicate to building administrators, to communicate to teachers, for teachers to communicate to students that, hey, the office phone is ported to my personal phone, so you may see me pick up my phone because it's coming through. You know what I'm saying? So I just think it needs to be a communicated out that we're not using it for personal uses, but it's for a school purpose.
And I think one thing that was added to the policy as well was Mrs. Kroll kind of expanded in the first bullet, where I think the original policy said, you couldn't use it for personal calls. That would be one thing, but, call, not necessarily limited strictly to calls, but in any use in any capacity, minus that it's being used for instructional purposes.
Yeah, and further, this point is, for students, the phone is required to be powered off. We are not requiring that through this policy of employees.
That's
They can
correct.
have their phone on them. They could have it on vibrate or whatnot. So if there is an emergency situation, teachers still have access to incoming communication on their personal electronic devices, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, other discussion? Okay, not hearing any, this motion has been made and it has been seconded. So I will call the vote for our employee cell phone use policy for first read.
Voting is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Okay, our next item is Preston County Schools Policy 11-45, Student Possession and Use of Personal Electronic Devices. This is an information, discussion, and action item. It is recommended that the board approve revisions and updates to Preston County Schools Policy 11-45, Student Possession and Use of Personal Electronic Devices on first read for possible approval and adoption on second read on August 11th, 2025. Can I get that motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kisner,
Second.
second by Mr. Zigray. Okay, Mr. Martin?
Yeah, Mr. Tatum, obviously there was extensive discussion on this topic during our last meeting. In review of the policy, that what's marked in yellow was originally proposed to the board during the July 14th meeting. You'll note that there are some items marked in green that really came as a result of the discussion from the July 14th meeting. So for example, under personal electronic devices, there was discussion, I believe Mr. Seymour had brought up that AirPods would be something that we might want to consider to add to personal electronic devices. There was a request from the board to kind of define, in terms of the personal electronic devices, that they're to be not only to be in power-off mode, but to clearly, articulate that they were going to be stored out of sight. In this instance, and to try to define that, whether it's a student locker, a book bag, or a purse, a designated area in the classroom, but that schools will have to identify to their students and to their parents what is the expectation in relation to, but they are to be out of sight. They can further define that within their existing school handbook policies. The policy does allow for the use of devices at lunch or recess. Now, Mr. Tatum, you had asked me to kind of begin to investigate how many schools might want to handle this internally. And what I found was a lot of schools had already kind of had significant limitations where they weren't permitting them out at all, even at lunch or recess or through hallways. So then kind of the next question was, can our schools, are they permitted to offer something more stringent than what's the base within the policy, which was one question I tried to pose to our legal counsel. And in asking that question, I said, with an inclination within the policy to potentially allow for usage at lunch and recess, if there are schools that do not permit them at those times, are we able to permit them to be, go above and beyond said policy? So what we were told is, yes, we could handle it that way. We are, based upon the legislation, we are prohibiting the devices during the instructional day. That is our legal requirement. We have to do that, requiring them to be stored with the exception of lunch and recess. However, within the policy, she indicated we were permitted to define and say individual schools could have the authority to prohibit them at lunch and recess if they decide to do so. And I think we went as far to indicate that it did need to be provided in writing via the handbook. So that was not outside the bounds. And I mean, I personally, if the school feels that they've had something working over previous years and they wanted to be able to continue that, and legally we as could permit that, I felt like that was probably a good step, that we didn't want to cause the schools to necessarily have to regress or take a back step to things they've had that have been working on this front. The second question would be, do we need to specifically define how each school planned to handle the storage of devices? And Mr. Tatham, following our Principals Academy, I'll be able to give you kind of a summary statement from each school as to their intent of how they want to handle it. I've talked to about 4 schools, and most of them are are of the mindset they're not looking for a specific area, like a wall hanger or something like at the store. It's more so kind of the mentality that Mr. Seymour had discussed during the last meeting is that they are to be off, out of sight during instructional time, but, some schools, Preston, I felt seemed to be inclined to permit use at lunch because they don't have a recess period. Two of the schools I talked to said they don't permit it at all, and that's what kind of listed that other question. So our council indicated that in terms of being specific as to how the devices will be stored, she said, you have designated the devices must be stored out of sight in a book bag, backpack, purse, or locker, have allowed schools to designate if there are other manners of storage, like a pouch or designated, which she indicated was okay. We're just basically putting it out there that the schools have to employ at least one of these measures to control the devices during the day. But, obviously I got the impression from the board that you all would like to know specifically at each school what is the plan, which in advance by the 11th meeting, I can certainly have that available for the board's review. I'll have that document in conjunction with this policy at our August 11th meeting. Mr. Kisner did bring, there's one item that is marked in blue that was a point of discussion last time in terms of situations where, for example, if a student were to refuse to provide said phone, if they're in violation of the policy and school officials request the phone, which part of our policy said it can be confiscated, or if a student, for example, would be using a decoy device that gets taken away, that they still have their normal phone. The way I tried to handle that would be is, I think those situations could be addressed through the existing disciplinary policy. I mean, if a student is given a directive by, an appropriate directive by school personnel and the student refuses, certainly would fall into the category of insubordination. And we have defined processes of how we would deal with insubordinate behavior. So I felt like for that, that's how we would define that, as situations of that nature could be dealt with existing disciplinary policy.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Martin, for that recap. Questions, comments from board members?
I have one. So where it says that, let me find it here. The students may have access to their personal electronic devices during instructional time if deemed necessary by a medical doctor, the student's IEP, or 5814.
Mm-hmm.
How are they going to be recognized in a school the size of Preston High that they're allowed to have their phone and not be reprimanded when they shouldn't?
I think there would have to be internal communication, I mean, Preston has daily email communication, for example, amongst the staff, but, I mean, there would have to be obviously a defined list that's provided to all staff that the following students have met the requirements, the exemption requirements related to the cell phone policy. Like, I just
So
think
do you
that
think-
would have to be, like, there would have to be a list made available
Right.
to all staff to know these are the students that are exempt from the said
But do you
policy.
think all the staff is going to recognize every student? My thing is, somebody that is typically on this end of the building might be down here, and the teacher sees them and yells at them, or sends them to the principal's office without realizing who they are. How are we going to keep those things from happening?
I mean, I think if that happens, obviously they would, the principal should be, I mean, again, I think just communication is going to be really key.
Should we have the students keep the medical slip on them? Or with them somehow?
Possibly, or, for example, again, I don't know that we would have to go that far. Again, I think a master list, signed off by administration that indicates, this list of students has met all the requirements of exemption to be able to be permitted to have it. But I think it's going to have to be, go as far, it's not even just a list. I mean, the way I read that would be is if, say, for example, it's a medical issue, I mean, it should go as far as the doctor's order should say, the student can have it for this period of time and
Right.
for this purpose. And, I think that level of detail really needs to be provided. I'm hopeful we don't have a landslide of exemptions, but I mean, quite frankly, people will pursue this, I'm sure. But that would be one thing, Mr. Hobart, is I think we're going to have to, a list is good, but I think we'll have to provide some specificity within the list as to the exact circumstances. I hope we don't have something that's like Dead Sea Scrolls that we're trying to read through. It's a really long list. But again, I think consistent communication to all staff as to those exception situations. But that's a great point is, big school like that, that's a little, I mean,
Right.
The larger schools, management, it is the most challenging of the larger schools. It is.
And I can assure you, the students have read Ignorant Pie, and they'll be able to tell you the code section that tells why they're allowed to have it. I'm telling you, they
I know-
don't know.
I know
I
they're
have
gonna be
504,
allowed,
it
but-
qualifies under this. They're gonna respond.
Got
whether
some young
it's nice or
lawyers
not.
out there.
Right, but I'm afraid that, you'll have backlash of parents saying, well, my kid keeps getting yelled at when, they've done everything they were supposed to do. That's
Well,
all.
I personally hope administrators and faculty continue to push and make sure that they're only using it within the guidance of what they're supposed to be. Like, I mean,
Right.
again,
If the doctor's note doesn't state you can have it in the hallway,
right.
then they can't.
Mrs.
have it.
Varner, speak into the mic because people aren't.
Well, I'm just saying, we need to have clarification on that when they
I was just
apply for
saying, if
this.
the doctor's note doesn't state they can have it in the hallway, then they can't have it out.
Right.
And
That's why I think that the specificity is going to be key there.
And all of those letters go to the principal. So the principal needs to be the gatekeeper, that it's
At the high
specific.
school, it'll be Miss Bishop, because she's the 504 and IEP coordinator.
Okay.
There will be growing pains, there is
Yeah,
no doubt.
yeah.
If we do it right, they'll be minimal.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hovatter. Other questions or comments?
On, Mr. Martin, minor things, just on page 1, the bottom 2 paragraphs, the one that starts out with commencing with, right above your finger, so the second, yes. So it says electronic devices, it just needs a spell fix there, it should be devices,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
CES,
Yep, I see.
right? And then the very last paragraph, the 4th line up, the first word is specific. should
Mr.
be
Tatham referenced
specified.
that. I've
Okay.
got that.
Again, minor things or whatever.
No,
but
we'll have that cleared up with
Yeah.
the final version.
Yeah. Sorry, if I'd have caught them sooner, I'd have had them in an
Not a
email
problem.
instead of here, but
It's good to have some other sets of eyes to lay upon that.
otherwise, I thought it was great, thank you.
Mrs. Noss, Mr. Zigray?
Nope.
No, I listened to the other one. I'm good.
Okay. Okay, then. So I think we've had discussion. This motion has been moved and seconded. Again, this is for first read of updating our student possession and use of personal electronic devices. So I will call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 5-0. Mr. Tatham, before we move on, I would ask if the board, at the board's discretion, because of the timing that we are approaching school, we really need to get communications out on this as soon as possible. With this being approved on a first draft, I mean, we can note that this has not reached final approval status, but would there be concerns if we could begin, I would like to start communications on this at the start of next week in terms of getting this out on our social media, using ThrillShare to make phone contact, really getting, and we are planning to have copies of both of these policies within our opening year magazine, both the employee and the student. We intend to include hard copies of those policies within that document as well.
Personally, I think that's great. I would just, again, like you said, just put it out there that it's on first read.
It's on first read, not final approval.
And I would use it as an opportunity to further invite the community and parents and employees to come for public discussion.
Sure.
Before the second read and approval on August 11th.
Okay.
Is there any other objection? Is there any objection from other board members?
No, I said last time, I think that's
I just
great.
don't want to, I just didn't
Yeah.
want to wait. I mean, I felt like it was important to come with a document tonight for y'all's review, but we really need to get some level of communication like as soon as possible.
Yeah, I would like to
Wait
have.
until August 11th while I'm crossing my legs.
No, I'd like to have some of the heart attack calls now early rather than
Well,
later. Like, there'll be plenty later.
I do think this will be, is somewhat of an advantage with the staggered start as well, is because we're going to be dealing with a smaller amount of students within our buildings where this can really be a point of emphasis and we can be, hyper vigilant, right from the get-go at the start. I think that will be helpful because that's what it's going to take. I mean, we need persistent and consistent application of this.
And I think this is a much cleaner document that'll be easier for people to understand. Okay, thank you, Mr. Martin.
Welcome.
Okay, next on our agenda is Preston County Schools Policy R12-5-4 and R12-5-6A, guidelines for curricular and extracurricular trips where county and/or leased vehicles are not utilized. This is an information, discussion, and action item. It is recommended that the board approve updates to Preston County School Policy R12-5-4 and R12-5-6A on second read for final approval. May I please get that motion?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Mr. Kisner,
Second.
second by Mrs. Noss. Mr. Martin?
Mr. Tatham, just limited, based upon board discussion last time, Mrs. Varner, that kicked off again. Limited changes made. I know that Mr. Kisner had mentioned in the third paragraph on page 1, just an update that because student athletes might come in at later portions of the season to kind of expand beyond not being the first necessary away event and/or the first event in which the student is participating, which was a change from the original. There was some suggested wording change on the last form in terms of not necessarily making it specific to sporting events and then removing the term leaving. I mean, that was kind of in reviewing the footage from our last meeting, that seemed to be the consensus of what was requested for this final vote.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Discussion or questions from board members? Okay. Mrs. Noss, Mr. Ziegler?
Nope.
No.
Okay, thank you. This motion has been moved and seconded. I now call the vote for second and final approval for policy 12-5-4 and 12-5-6A.
Voting is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Now, under the finance portion of our agenda, we have contract review as per policy 8200. This is an information, discussion, and action item. It's recommended that the board approve blanket purchase order number 2600044 to Best Life Therapy for contracted speech pathology, speech, DHH, vision, and ASL interpreter services for $300,000 for the 2025-26 school year, and purchase order number 2600211 to Curriculum Associates for iReady benchmark and online educator site teacher toolbox assessment and implementation support for $135,893 for the 2025-26 academic year. May I get that motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kisner,
Second.
second by Mr. Hovatter. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Tatham, for Best Life Therapy, I believe that is a blanket purchase order. Like, that is not necessarily the contract that will pay out. It would be based upon need.
What's used?
Right, so that's a starting mark to indicate what we would, the budget, it certainly could come in less than that depending upon the level of need for the county. iReady, that's a continuation of benchmarking testing services that's been approved over the last several years.
Yeah, so I was going to say that, so for the Best Life, we've already approved their MOU, and then for iReady, we approved the contract the previous year. So I'm assuming this contract is the same, it's just a
Yes.
continuation. And all of the schools are continuing to use that in their instructional curriculum teams?
That's correct.
Okay. Any comments or discussion? Mrs. Noss?
The only question I would have, Mr. Martin, would be, you mentioned earlier, like you were changing or I know that the school changed their dental insurance, like I got that email or whatever. Would those contracts not exceed these amounts per year?
I will see, Mr. Kisner, I have never, I don't know that we have ever brought that to the board, and not to mean that we should. I will see with that. Generally, I know that Mrs. Kerstead in review, we've looked at what has been financially advantageous to our employees. A concern that was brought forth with the plan that was put forth last year is in terms of there were a number of firms that did not accept the insurance. This one is, Mr. Ziegler and I were actually looking at the site today. It's a much wider net in terms of practitioners who are accepting this insurance. But I will check and see the contractual language, and you can certainly bring that for, at the very least, the board's review.
Well, again, I'm not, if we don't need to, it was one of those things where I know in general, we don't review payroll checks. That's not part of what we have to do because those are contracts that are done earlier. And I just thought, I don't know if that's ever been considered since it kind of falls
I
into the
think
payroll category.
we probably need to have that discussion. I'll speak with Mrs. Kerstetter as to what we have. At this point, I would say I would be concerned that to try to make a change now, we would probably end up in a situation where we didn't have it.
Again,
But-
this is not me looking to stop anything.
No, no,
It's
no,
not my
I-
goal. I just was making sure it wasn't something that we were dropping that we should be.
Well, and I'll check on that to be sure, and if we need to bring that at least for the board's review, we certainly would do
No
so.
Okay, so the motion has been made for these two purchase orders for Best Life Therapy and iReady. It's been moved and seconded. Is there, not hearing any further discussion, I call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next we have the levy check report from July 14th, 2025. This is an informational item. Is there any discussion? Not hearing any. Thank you, and that's available for the public. Next, we have the schedule of checks. This is an action item. It's recommended that the board approve the schedule of checks. May I get that motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, who is my motion?
Ms. Noss.
Mrs.
It's
Noss?
close.
Okay, and then Mr. Zigray was the second. Okay, discussion.
Mr. Tatham, one thing that I did want to advise is I reached out to our council, and one recommendation was made is there was a ethics committee decision that with this agenda item, I have updated, which we typically use schedule of checks. I've added schedule of checks / payment of bills, which was the verbiage that was used in that particular decision, which I think I shared that information with the board, and it's shared within this document as well. One other thing that was suggested within it is really the county at this time, we are in excess of the requirement, the public disclosure requirements as it relates to fiscal items. The requirement that was brought forth by the Ethics Committee decision was that a school board is required to provide a vendor and the amount paid. We do provide descriptors, we do provide the specific purchase order and check numbers. So, if anything, our council's review is we were in excess of public reporting requirements. One thing that was also suggested within that agreement is to just put a blanket statement that the public, if they would want to review of a greater level of documentation, that certainly they could make an appointment within our finance office to review any documentation as requested. If it is information that can be readily pulled quickly, we certainly try to work in conjunction with the public on that as well. But just wanted to add for the board's benefit that we've gotten an opinion on that and feel like we've made a few minor changes that we feel will, even improve our level of compliance.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Okay, questions or comments from board members? Mrs. Noss, Mr. Zigray?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, the only other thing, Mr. Tatham, I did make a notation in there. When Mrs. Fike initially uploaded this, there was an inclusion of the checks that had been approved from the previous board agenda. So I left that in there because that document was uploaded at the time of the submission. But what you're actually voting upon was the 3-page document that indicated, I think it was referred to in there as, let me look here. A revised schedule of checks, and that was what has not been approved and is up for potential approval by the board tonight.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we are on the schedule of checks, payment of bills. The motion has been made and seconded. I now call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, Thank you. Now we are at Budget Journal Entries 101 through 103. This is an action item. It is recommended that the board approve Budget Journal Entries 101 through 103, and this is for Transition Conference, CFOV, Andrew Goldstrom Fund, and AP test fees. May I get that motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kisner,
Second.
second by Mrs. Noss. Okay, any discussion? Okay, not hearing or seeing anything? Okay, the motion has been moved and seconded. I now call the vote for approval of journal entries 101 through 103.
Voting is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. We are now at the maintenance work order system update. This is informational. Mr. Martin?
Yeah, the totals are relatively low, board members, just because we did the reset, so it's accounting for work orders starting in July. Oh, and Mr. Kisner, I did have a discussion with Mr. Sines. We think we can add an additional field in there where the practitioner, like where the, not practitioner, I don't know if that's, but the maintenance workers would be able to go in and provide, like, our thought process would be is maybe to look at various ranges of time, that, 0 to 15 minutes, 15 to 30, maybe something type of 15-minute interval, and then hit a point where, beyond this. But we, as per your suggestion, we're looking to see if we can get that added in.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else under the maintenance?
Mr. Martin, I'm just, I kind of looked through these, and is there a way that on some of these, like, it takes 433 days for something to be done, and it says checked? Could there be more information provided on maybe why it took 433 days to take care of something?
Sure. I can, specific ones of lengthy time.
Yeah, just lengthy time, like why did, it could be something simple. They couldn't get a part they
Sure.
needed to do, get somebody specific in to take care of it. It would just be nice to
Know why.
know why it took so long.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we are now at the closing part. Is there anything that needs to be placed on the agenda for the next meeting? Mr. Martin, I would just say, if we could update for the, currently it says employee cell phone use, but that should probably be employee.
Electronic personal device use.
Yeah, just put the updated title on that one.
Did I not update that?
Not on the subject heading for the agenda. So
Okay, in
just
the
when you-
in the policy itself, I did, okay.
The policy you did, but for
Okay.
the agenda, so that the agenda matches the
I will
policy.
get
This
that
current
changed.
agenda matched the previous policy, but now that we've had one reading.
Gotcha. Yep, I'll get that updated. And board members, I will, obviously, the cell phone policies, we will bring those back for a potential second review. I anticipate we'll probably have some chaperones that have been able to navigate the process by the next meeting as well.
Okay.
So, I'm struggling with what to do with this. Mr. Seymour was light enough at the last meeting, or was informative enough at the last meeting to bring up, I think it was the last meeting, the hat policy that had changed. That the high school does not have a hat policy, and that was beneficial to the high school. But our policy, R1173, student dress and appearance, explicitly says hats are not allowed to be worn on campus.
Okay, so
So
how about
I'm
we put
saying,
that,
like-
how
We
about
need
put
to
that on
make
the
sure
agenda?
that policy
We either
correlates
need to
to.
remove that if we believe that is, yes, we need to discuss whether or not we
Yeah.
want to keep that policy or whatever.
So let's put that on the agenda. What was that policy?
1173?
Yes.
Okay.
1173. Thank you, Mr. Kisner.
And again, all I want to clarify is, I appreciate Mr. Seymour being here and saying stuff. This is not a, hey, I got you. That is not the point of this at
Understood.
all. I do want us to be consistent, and that's all I'm.
No, I agree.
That's why we're here. Okay, other items. Mr. Zigray, Mrs. Noss? No. Mr. Hovatter? Okay. If there's nothing else then, for the good of the order, I will request a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mr. Hovatter,
Second.
second by Mrs. Noss. Any discussion? Okay, not hearing any. The motion has been made and seconded to adjourn. I call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 5-0 at 7:25.
Okay, thank you, everyone.